Our biggest enemy is ourselves, because we do not uplift ourselves usually. Especially as kids, we're taught to look for all the things we are not doing right yet. And we're always focused on what isn't working, with the idea that the more attention we spend on what is not working, then the better we will get at fixing it. And yet, it doesn't really happen that way. Our attention creates a fractal pattern. So the more you look at something, the more focus you give something, the more detail you notice in that thing. For me, the real epiphany is you get to love yourself exactly as you are right now. God adores you. God loves you. Source designed you exactly the way you are for a reason, because this is what is needed here right now.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ask Julie Ryan Show. It's where we blend spirituality and practicality to help you live a life of purpose and joy. We have Elaine Starling with us on the show today. Elaine's a renowned TEDx and international speaker, a successful entrepreneur, and she's the host of the Abundance Journey show. She experienced an NDE and met God. I'm looking forward to hearing how she combines spiritual concepts with her business knowledge to help her clients. Please remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your family and friends. Now, let's go chat with Elaine. Elaine, welcome to the show. I'm so delighted to have you.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here, Julie. I love your show, and this is just such a huge treat for me.
Oh, gosh, I'm so honored. Thank you for that. You say you were at a crossroads in your life and you were struggling. What happened that changed the direction of your life?
I was blessed on New Year's Day 2005 to have a stroke. And I always say blessed because during my stroke, I got to have a conversation with our higher power. And I got a complete download about how everything works, why we're alive, how we can live our best life, and what happens next after this life. And I always tell people, don't worry about that part. It's a graduation. It's not an ending. And you know this really well with your work. It's definitely not an ending. And yeah, it was just such an incredible experience that I shifted everything in my life and stopped doing the business that I was doing and transitioned to now start helping people understand what this universal abundance really is, what this divine abundance really is, and how we can leverage that in our own lives.
What a great answer. I was blessed to have a stroke. I think when you probably say that for people who don't know what the rest is that's coming are probably thinking, this woman's just twisted. Why would somebody say, I was blessed to have a stroke? But yeah, so tell us more about that. What'd you learn from that experience? We're going to go into this in depth. I got lots of questions for you. But what's the first takeaway? What did you experience when you were having this stroke? You mentioned that you were in a different industry. Tell us about that. Tell us about your life pre-stroke and then what you went through when you were in the middle of having this stroke. What happened
Sure.
there?
Sure. It's really interesting. It turns out when the divine wants to have a conversation with you, they're going to have a conversation with you. I had my own media planning and buying company. It was part of an advertising agency, but the side that handles space and time. That's what I did. I bought space and time and worked with a lot of high tech companies in the San Francisco Bay Area. And the industry was just getting very complicated. Internet advertising was really starting to come into its own. There was a lot more detail. It was much more expensive to do the work that I needed to do. And all the clients wanted to pay less, of course. And so I was getting caught in the middle and I couldn't really figure out how in the world do I reinvent this and restructure this so that it's more viable. And I just couldn't figure it out. I was really struggling with it. And I told my husband on my birthday, about a month before the stroke, I am so blessed in so many areas of my life. I'm just going to stop thrashing. I'm going to accept the status quo and just live with what is, because obviously this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm just going to do it and see what happens. So then on New Year's Day, we're actually on vacation in New Zealand. Beautiful. We were on the South Island in Queenstown and we'd had breakfast and we were wandering around in and out of shops. They had some shops open because it was a holiday. And all of a sudden I got tunnel vision with sparkles around the outside. And then my right arm went numb and the right side of my face went numb, and those are classic symptoms of a stroke. So my husband walked me to a little medical center. They gave me an aspirin. They took me through some exercises and they said, "You're having a stroke."
How old were you, Elaine?
I was 43. We'd been off the plane for over a week. And so it was really interesting. I felt great. I felt like a lazy Saturday morning where I just want to sleep in and go back to sleep. So finally, I said, I'm really tired. Could I take a nap? And they said, sure, there's not anything else we can do for you right now. We gave you the aspirin and we have to kind of see what happens. So as soon as I relaxed, I found myself inside this massive cloud and I was part of it and it was part of me. And I have never felt such intense love and approval and appreciation in my life. I mean, just this ultimate unconditional love. And I've been blessed with some amazing relationships. But I got to tell you, Julie, this was a cut above. And somehow I knew all that appreciation was for me. And hey, I'd been raised a good little girl. And I immediately kind of pushed back and said, What are you talking about? I'm not all that. I don't speak multiple languages. I haven't solved world hunger. I mean, get real. I'm just me." And I heard, "Oh, you don't understand how this works. See, you're deliberately designed with your skills, abilities, talents, uh, your preferences, your interests, all of that, along with your hot buttons, your issues, your faults, your foibles, all the things that hold you back. We put all of that together to create precisely what we need right now. You are perfect because of your imperfections." And I had this sudden, whoa, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore kind of moment. And I just started thinking questions. And every time a question came to mind, I received the answer in my body, 360 degrees, past, present, future, things we can't see, sounds we can't hear. It was beyond human comprehension. I describe it as kind of like swallowing Google whole. Every single time I asked, well, all the likes, all the shares, all the links, all the videos, all the everything, just boom, there it is. The answer,
A
right?
divine download at
It
its
was
peak.
amazing. It was
Yeah.
amazing. And so ultimately, after a while, I felt like I was kind of at this mixer. And here I am with God, off in an alcove, and we're having this intense, amazing conversation. And there goes Jesus, and hey, Buddha, and hi, Muhammad, and I'm seeing all these different spiritual masters and all this stuff going back and forth. And I get it, but I don't want to be distracted from this conversation because it's so amazing. It's so intense. And so I'm really focused on this conversation. And eventually, I'm kind of slowing down on my questions. And they asked me, "Are you sure you're done?" And I said, "Well, no, I'm halfway through my vacation. We're loving New Zealand. You should really." "Oh, yeah, you probably know all about it." But and they said, "No, no, you said you were done thrashing. If you're sure you're done, we can use that ectoplasm for something else. Are you sure you're done?" And I had this deep knowing that I was really close to something important. And if I chose to stay, I would have to go all the way back and start at the beginning to get back to where I was. And it would really piss my husband off too. So I said, "No, I'm not done." And I heard, "Great, get back and get busy." And I came out of the stroke with no damage. Nothing happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right, let's unpack that a little. That was a lot.
Just a
You
little.
you threw all of Google at us at one time, so
I know.
let's unpack it just a little bit. First of all, what'd the cloud look like? Did it look like a white puffy cloud that we see on a blue sky day?
I realized later what I was noticing were atoms. Yeah. So it seemed to me with my ability to interpret what I was experiencing, it seemed like a cloud. In reality, it was atoms that are around us all the time.
That were moving, that were stationary, that were
They
what?
would move some, but my focus was on the message that I was receiving. It was
Yeah.
really interesting because partway through the conversation, I realized I wasn't really using my physical senses. My sight, sound, taste, touch, sense of smell, all of that really wasn't being used. And
Mhm.
I I got the message back, "Well, yeah, they're kind of primitive. It's great for when you're human, but, we, we don't bother with that really.
Yeah.
It's
All those
nice
humans are
kid,
they're kind of
you know."
primitive. I love that. Oh my god, that's hilarious. Yeah, so the atoms, I'm picturing them in my mind, and they look like, a vapor almost to me in my mind's eye. Not really steam, but more of a vapor. Does that describe it?
Yes, pretty
Okay,
much.
alright.
Yeah. It was interesting because after I started doing a lot of research on all of this stuff after this happened, and scientists will tell you that if you take the nucleus of an atom and pretend that it's the size of a peanut, the rest of the atom will be the entire size of a baseball field with all the parking lots around it. And the electrons and positrons and neutrons, which are much, much tinier than that peanut sized nucleus, are all floating around in that massive space. And scientists will tell you that every single atom is mostly 99.9999 something empty space. And I was shown that that's where the divine lives.
Right. Well, and recently, I think in the past year or so, I've read some research about that quantum physicists who are in the biology side of the equation have found that in every cell, in every human cell, is a black hole in the center of it, which is just space, which is to your point where spirit lives. All right, tell us about God. Did God sound like James Earl Jones or Morgan Freeman? This is God talking to you.
Well, again, there was no sound.
All right, so it was
So
telepathic.
it was all telepathic and it was instantaneous knowing. And the sensation was one of deep love and patience and delight. Just someone who so appreciates you. Imagine a parent with a baby that's learning how to walk and the look on the parent's face and how proud they are and excited they are for you that you're figuring this out. And
Mhm,
it's rewarding for them to witness this transformation in you.
mhm. So telepathically, before God started talking to you, did he say, "Hello, Elaine, this is God." You just knew it was God.
Well, I figured somebody who had those kinds of answers, it was not your average Joe on the street corner, right? I'm like, wow, this is very interesting. And every time I'd ask the question, I'd get such an intense answer back. The only logical conclusion was, you're talking to God, honey.
So this was source. Yeah.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
was yours. Okay. So when you were asking these questions, and I want to, like I said, I want to do a deep dive into the questions here in a couple of minutes. But I love the quote where you said, "You're perfect because of your imperfections." What was your understanding of that when you were in that space? And what is it now after you've had a lot of time to reflect on that comment?
It's really interesting. I think our biggest enemy is ourselves because we do not uplift ourselves usually. Especially as kids, we're taught to look for all the things we are not doing right yet. And we're always focused on what isn't working, with the idea that the more attention we spend on what is not working, then the better we will get at fixing it. And yet, it doesn't really happen that way. Our attention creates a fractal pattern. So the more you look at something, the more focus you give something, the more detail you notice in that thing. So if you look at problems, the more details to the problems you get to witness and experience and worry about. And so for me, the real epiphany is you get to love yourself exactly as you are right now. God adores you. God loves you. Source designed you exactly the way you are for a reason, because this is what is needed here right now. And it doesn't mean that everything is perfect. In fact, one of the key messages that I received, it was really funny. They asked me a rhetorical question. They said, okay, everything is love. The chair you're sitting in is love. The computer you're on is love. Or you are love. The God of your understanding is love. Everything is love. So, how do you expand love? How do you expand God if everything is already love? I was stumped. I had no clue. And they said, well, we decided to create human beings who don't think that everything is love. So they experience the joy of contrast, the difference between what is wanted and what is not wanted. And that friction gives you the superpower of choice, where you either step back in fear and try to stay safe, or you step forward in love and grateful curiosity. You don't know what's coming, but you're open and ready and eager to receive. And every time you step forward, you expand the divine. You expand God. That's why you have been physical many times in the past and you will be physical many times in the future, because this is the rock star place to be. We don't make it easy because it's not about always being in alignment. It's about you go out of alignment and then you use your tools and techniques to get back into alignment. And that shift from being out of alignment to go back into alignment is what feeds that growth in the divine. That's what expands the divine. So, of course, everything's going well. And then the stuff hits the fan, right? And we're given another opportunity to rise to the occasion and be the best person we can be in the circumstances. We're challenged with that over and over again. Be the love that is needed here right now.
And that's how we create. When we know what
Yes.
we don't want, it helps us create what we do want. And furthermore, the thing that I hear from spirit, I've heard it a bazillion times, Elaine, is that when we're in spirit form, there's no right or wrong, there's no good or bad. To your point, it's all love. And when we're going through something horrific from our human perspective, and it is horrific, no negating what we're going through, our cheerleaders in heaven, our spirits, our spirit guides, our loved ones, our deceased loved ones, God, the angels, the whole kit and caboodle, they're all up there going, "Oh, this is fabulous. This is so amazing. I wonder what Elaine's gonna create out of this. How's she gonna do this? How's she gonna deal with this? What's gonna be something new that she's gonna realize? Or is she gonna invent, like, a new way to do the advertising thing because you were in that industry at the time?" Or, like in my case, I'm an inventor of surgical devices. I knew what was out there. I knew what the problems were. I created something new. How does that work? And I've heard so many times from spirit that they're just cheerleaders, regardless of how awful whatever it is we're going through seems to be in the moment. Would you agree with that? Have you encountered the
Oh,
same thing?
1,000%, a thousand
Yeah.
percent, because really what's happening, you feel that there's an obstacle. You feel that there's a challenge. They know that it's all about you making a choice to acknowledge your power or deny it. So, quick story, I was in my kitchen a few months ago doing dishes, and I was musing over, sometimes you're working on a project and it comes together really easy. It's a snap, it's a breeze, it's no big deal. And then there's other times when you're working on something, it is a freaking slog. It doesn't matter what you do, you hit roadblock, problem, issue, challenge, everywhere you turn, it's frustration. And I was just kind of wondering, why does that happen? And I immediately felt and heard a very loud, forceful voice in my body that said, when you deny your power is denied to you. When you acknowledge your power is shown to you. You are more powerful than you can imagine. And I was like, whoa, dried my hands, wrote it down. I'm like, how am I denying my power? What am I don't want to do that anymore. What's going on here? And I realized often the words I use are accidentally chopping me down. I'm diminishing myself before I even get started. So I'm much more cognizant of when I use words like want, need, try. Instead, I tend to choose, decide, prefer, or desire, because that makes it really clear this is a choice that I'm making. And I'm choosing to maintain my power and acknowledge my power. Now, I don't know what my power is. My power is shown to me. Can I share one more little story?
Sure, please share all the stories you can.
Well,
Yeah.
I wanted more direction. So I kept asking for more guidance on this because I especially wanted to understand. So, what's this whole acknowledging your power thing? And I was guided to a great book called The Magic of Surrender by Kute Blackson, Kute Blackson, The Magic of Surrender.
I've
And
had him
in
on
the
the
book,
show. I've
he's
had him on the
awesome.
show.
He's awesome. He was
Yeah.
on my show too. He's a brilliant guy. And in the book, he's talking about a conversation he had with his father, who was known as the miracle minister. And this miracle minister had over 200 churches throughout Africa. They were originally from Ghana and throughout the UK. And legit, I mean, every time he would go and pray, people were cured of cancer and people who were paralyzed could walk. I mean, you name it. Unbelievable things happened. And so Coot grew up in the church. He witnessed this all the time, but got to sit down with his dad as an adult. And he said, Dad, tell me about a miracle that you witnessed and what was going on. What happened? And he said, well, recently the king of Ghana was in London, where I happen to live too, and he had had a stroke and half of his body was paralyzed. And the queen reached out to me and asked me to come to their home to pray over the king for his complete and total health and well-being. So I'm in the bedroom with the king and his wife, the queen, and I'm praying for his total health, and I get an image of tomato juice. So I asked his wife, you happen to have any tomato juice in the house? She said, yeah, I think so. Should I bring some? Good idea. Yeah, let's do that. So she brought a little glass of tomato juice. And as the king was drinking the tomato juice, they heard these loud cracks and pops. And all of a sudden, the king jumped out of bed and he was fine. He was moving around. No problem. He wasn't paralyzed anymore. And Coot said, wow, Dad, what did you do? And the miracle minister said, well, God healed the king. I just didn't get in the way of the divine. I didn't have to understand it first. I didn't judge it first. I didn't evaluate it first. I didn't critique it first. I didn't need to understand it. I could just share the message so the miracle could happen. And it was so profound for me. That was a real game changer for me. You don't know your own power. You share the blessings that you receive. You're so good at that with your show and sharing all the messages that come through. I mean, that's when the miracle happens, is when you share, then the miracle happens. You are that conduit for the divine.
Yeah, I always thank you for that. That's very sweet, very kind. Thank you. I always say that it's spirit working through me and with me to help the person heal themselves. And that's why I don't ever judge anything. I don't edit anything I get because everything's healable. And, my analogies are wild at times. And that is, honest to God, just how they come in. Like Coot's dad going, got any tomato juice? And I'm sure the queen was thinking, what the heck's tomato juice got to do with this? And it was just symbolic for what the energy healing was that was happening
Well, it
at
was
the
really
time.
interesting because a message came through just this last week because I was thinking about the tomato juice story, and I realized if I had been in the room with the king and I got an image of tomato juice, I would have thought, "Oh, Elaine, you don't need a Bloody Mary right now. We're trying to heal the king. Focus, focus, focus." And when I make it about me, I deny my power. Oops.
Yeah. Well, and early on for me, I was like, "Oh my god, people are gonna think I am just such a nut job by saying these different analogies of these pictures that are coming through my head." And then like you, I just got over myself and I said, "Okay, this is intentional from spirit to give us a human frame of reference that helps the healing integrate into the body." And that's what the tomato juice was doing for whatever reason. Who knows? What all that was doing. Maybe it was lacking in vitamin C or, whatever else the other minerals and goodies are that are in tomato juice. I love that. When you communicate with spirit now, how do you do it? Do you meditate first, raise your vibration level? What are you doing? Or do you just ask a question and then a thought comes into your head? Can you tell us a little bit about how that works for you?
Yes. Now I call this the divine. I experience the divine as effervescent joy, just over the top, happy, excited, delighted, playful, silly. And they're constantly getting after me to lighten up, honey. Just to have a good time. Relax. It's not that big a deal.
I
Stop
know.
making it such this, you know, all the drama, trauma. Get over yourself. And so when I'm truly relaxed and I'm sort of not paying attention, like I might be musing over, I wonder why that happens, then I will get the messages. So, yes, sometimes I do meditate in the mornings and I'll sit for guidance and I ask a question and then I just listen to what comes through. Sometimes I'll get an image. But mostly I get language. Usually I'll get a sentence or I'll get some clarity that way. And I just keep going and I'll say, "Is there anything else? Is there anything else you want to share with me about this?" And it just keeps coming through. And it's really interesting. It doesn't feel like it's me coming up with this information. I've had people say, "Well, you should just own it." And it's like, "Yeah, but I'm not that bright. I got to tell you, this is something way
Exactly.
beyond
Right.
me."
I see that too. I'm not that creative. Trust me, I'm not that creative. Well, how do you discern between what's your thought and what's coming from the divine?
Um, what's coming from the divine is universal, and it always has the current of love, always. What's
What do you
coming
mean by when you say it's universal? What does that
it
mean to
applies
you?
to everyone, not just me.
Okay.
It's not just my life and my unique situation. It's I could take this particular piece of knowledge and it would be relevant for you and whatever you're dealing with, and relevant for someone else and whatever they are dealing with. So the kind of information that comes through is truly applicable in all situations. And there is a strong vibration of love around it. And I notice in my human self, there's often a shadow of doubt, and I'm getting much better at acknowledging that that might be there and then letting it go, because I'm not gonna tap into my human self. My human awareness is very limited. My divine awareness is unlimited, and I would rather pay attention to what they're telling me than what I'm making up on my own.
You gave us a great example about you know, um, the biggest enemy is ourself and that how much power we have. Is there another, easy for me to say, is there another example? Sorry, my brain's ahead of my tongue there. Is there another example you can share with us of something that really stuck with you, something that really resonated with you?
Yes, one of the messages that I got during my stroke is whatever you believe is true for you, not for anybody else, just for you.
Right.
So we want you to be very aware of what those beliefs are doing for you. Are those beliefs empowering you or disempowering you? Whatever you believe is true for you. And just this morning, I got the awareness that the speed of your activation is related to the speed of your beliefs. So the faster you can drop beliefs that don't serve you, the faster your transformation.
How do you tell what beliefs aren't serving you?
The beliefs that aren't serving you feel limiting. They make you feel smaller, ineffective, incapable. It's never going to happen. This couldn't work for me. It's impossible for me. And the ones that do support you are full of possibility and potential. They feel expansive and uplifting. So that's how you can tell the difference.
Okay. I have a belief I have to share with you. It keeps
Please.
rolling around in my head. That is, someone who's been through everything you've been through, I'm just disappointed you still have to do the dishes. What you're choosing to do the dishes. I'm like,
I like
you're
doing
talking about,
dishes.
I was doing the dishes and this divine download came in. I'm thinking, why do you still have to do the dishes? Everything you've been through? I mean, you should be absolved from having to do the dishes ever again. Oh, funny. All right. Let's get back to business here. How does everything work?
Everything is love. And there are three key things that the divine wants us to do. The first one is be love right now. Love is needed here, and we expect you to be the one to bring the love. So that's number one. Love is needed here, bring the love. Number two, love is present here, but it's a lot like a scavenger hunt. We're not going to make it easy. It doesn't matter what we throw at you, it's designed to be a blessing. But it's also like playing Twister. You aren't always going to know exactly what the blessing is. And we expect you to dig around, look under the bushes, and climb those ladders to figure it out. Love is present here. What does that look like for you? And the third is get together with other people, because every time you do, you collaborate to create more love.
All right. And if you're getting together with other people and there are several in the group are snarky, is that part of the twister game? You got to twist yourself around them to find the love, either around them or in them, even if they're in a nasty mood or. or
Yeah,
they
it was
just
really
have.
interesting. I was thinking about that, recently, especially with all the turmoil that's been going on, a lot of conflict and a lot of disagreements in general right now in our society. And I was thinking about that, and I was given an image of boats in a bay where the tide has gone out, and all the boats are on their sides on the bank of the bay, waiting for the water to come back. And I was shown as the water comes in, it goes into the deepest grooves first. It fills all the holes and the deep channels before it gets to level out to where the boats are. And then it lifts all the boats. And I was reminded that those who most need love are those who have forgotten how to love.
And so are those the boats that are not upright yet?
Those are the ones who are being snarky.
No, I know, but back to your analogy of the boats in the bay
They're
and
the
the water going up.
channels. They're the
They're
channels,
they're the channels where their boats are not upright yet. They're still
right?
on their sides.
Yeah.
Mm, okay. And so how do we can we, and if we can, how do we help infuse those snarky people with love?
So there's a very important thing to do. First of all, make sure that you maintain your own high level of consciousness. You need to be internally resourced for that, connected with the divine, and not worried about what other people are doing or saying or believing or thinking or acting. Whatever they're doing, that's their path and their journey. And you maintain your own path, your own journey. And then what you do is you acknowledge something that's true for them and appreciate how they are handling it. So even if they're struggling with something, maybe there was a death in the family, it's like, I know how hard this is. I've been there. I lost both of my parents. They are now in angel form. And I realize just how challenging this can be. I totally get it. And I got to say, you are so courageous in how you're supporting yourself and your family. The love that you feel is palpable. And I know your loved one feels it too.
Wow. That's a golden nugget, girl. That's a big golden nugget. Wow. That's a good one. Speaking of which, I had a client this morning who got on the Zoom with me and she said, "My mother just passed 7 minutes ago." Thinking, "Why are you on the Zoom with me?" And she said, I said, "Oh, well, we'll just reschedule this. You go be with your family and I'll talk to you this weekend. I'll make a special time for you. I mean, whatever you need. Well, I, I'll get to you when you're ready, whatever." And she said, "No, no, I want to talk to you." And I said, "Okay." She said, I told my mother last night I had this appointment with you and I was really excited about it." And she said, "I believe my mother left in time for me to make the appointment." And so we laughed, we cried, and afterwards she said, "This was so perfect. The timing," she said, "You can't make this up." That and I said, "Well, who's with your mom? Your mom's body?" And she said, "My sister's in there. We're waiting for hospice, and then the hospice will call the funeral home and all of that." And she said, "Nothing's gonna happen for an hour anyways. My mom wanted to go to heaven in time so that I could talk with you." Oh my god. Talk about an honor of a lifetime. Somebody's saying that to me?
Oh, yeah. As soon as you said it, I heard hot off the presses because I heard that her mom really wanted that conversation to happen while she was in her divine state. And so it was important to her mom to leave the room real quick so the conversation would happen. Yeah. What a
Because it
blessing.
it was so comforting to her daughter.
Yes.
And the timing still is just it's making me weepy even talking about it, Elaine. I mean, I just think, "Oh my goodness." Now I've the other closest thing I had to that was I had a mother and a daughter call me the night that the husband and dad had passed. And I thought that was remarkable, and I was so touched and honored by that, but 7 minutes? And then later she said, "Yeah, and my mom, they pronounced her dead 10 minutes, ago." And she said, "But in my mind, I believe she left 7 minutes before I got on the call with you." Holy Moses. I thought that was amazing. So, why are we alive? Why do we have the opportunity to come and go as we please? I believe we all choose when we go, where we go, how we go, who's with us or not when we decide to go on to heaven. Why is that? Why do we choose all of that? You touched on it a little bit earlier, but can you expand on that some more for us?
Certainly. We choose to be in physical form because this is how we expand the divine. This is how we expand God. So we come into physical form deliberately to go through trials and tribulations so that we will. I call everybody, we're weebles. We wobble, but we don't fall down. We like to think that we're always in alignment, but no, we're not. Life happens and we go out of alignment. And then we've got that nice round bottom. So we pop right back up again when we remember to use our tools and remember how connected we really are. So having that awareness, and then also the journey to getting away from thinking that life is all about me and recognizing that life is truly through me. That was one of the messages that I got during my stroke. Sorry to tell you, honey, but life isn't really all that much about you. Life is more through you. It's about how you show up while you're here. And they're like, get over yourself, kid.
You
And
really don't have as much power as you think you do, although we told you have unlimited power, but you don't have power to control how somebody else experiences something.
no, you have control over how you experience it.
That's right.
And so that's what they want us to do, is to recognize that we are not the source of the universe. We create our own universe. And so we become more internally resourced instead of externally referenced, and deciding that whatever happens in the outside world is a judgment about us. It's not. It's just what's happening in the outside world. And then we choose how we will respond to it and how we will rise to the occasion.
Yeah. Like road rage. I had to train my husband. When I first got a hold of him all those decades ago, I mean, that man, oh, somebody would cut him off and he'd just explode. And I'd say, so I taught him to think, I say, honey, his wife's in labor. He's racing to get to the hospital because his child's going to be born. Say, that man's wife ain't in labor. He's 80 years old. I'd say, and then, if it's a woman, I'd say she's in labor. She's driving herself to the hospital. And now it's just kind of this family joke. But you know what? It worked because it got him to stop and think. And then he didn't do road rage anymore.
Well, I had a
So,
similar experience.
yeah.
This was a couple of years ago. I was running some errands, driving my husband's truck, and it's a fairly large vehicle, and spatial awareness and I are distant acquaintances at best. And so I'm very careful backing out of a parking space. And so I'm backing out really slowly, slowly, and out of the corner of my eye, I see somebody flying through the parking lot. I'm thinking, wow, that is not safe. But I'm slowly, slowly looking all around, backing up, and I hear somebody honk. I don't even know if they were honking at me, but I sure thought they were. And boy, I went from happy, happy, joy, joy to pissed off in like a nanosecond. And I was ranting in my mind, what a jerk. They weren't just dropped on their head as an infant, they were dribbled repeatedly. And I was having fun with this righteous indignation. And all of a sudden, the divine interrupted me. They're like, whoa, honey, whoa. We keep telling you that every single moment is designed to be a blessing for you. That little story that you're making up might be entertaining, but it is not a blessing. We want you to make up a story where the moral of the story is that honk was a huge blessing for you. What does that story sound like? And I had to think about it. And I thought, well, maybe I was going to hit something. And the other driver didn't have time to put their car in park, jump out, run around, knock on my window. Lady, you're going to hit something. And not having an accident that would have cost a lot of money, taken a lot of time, been really inconvenient. Well, yeah, that's a blessing. Maybe they had a different perspective on the parking spot than I did. And I didn't think I had enough room, but I hit the brakes and I cranked on that wheel and I squeaked out of that parking spot. So maybe it was more of a thumbs up. You've got this. You're good to go. And again, they didn't have time to jump out, run around, knock on the window. And then the real message came through. All these years, I've been the bad guy blocking my blessings because I'm the one making up the story. And when I make up a story that it is not a blessing, I don't get the blessing.
Wow.
That's on me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Ouch.
Wow. Well, who was it? George Lucas said we all live in cages with the door open, but most of us just stay in the cage. we don't ever go through the door. And we create our reality, and that brings new meaning to that. So back to the stroke for a minute. You're in the health center. They've given you an aspirin. You're taking a nap in the health center, and then you just wake up. How long were you
Well,
asleep? What
couple of other
went
things
on?
happened. Couple of
Yeah.
other things happened. So, I briefly came out of the stroke, and they decided that I needed to go to a real hospital. And, of course, it's New Year's Day. Everything's closed. Everybody's on holiday. They're at a skeleton staff. And the nearest hospital is a 3.5-hour drive away.
Oh, wow.
So, they put me in an ambulance. My husband's in the back of the ambulance, and we're driving for 3.5 hours to get down to Invercargill where we can go to the hospital. So during that whole time, I go back into the stroke and I'm back in the conversation. And it was really interesting because after I got that message, get back and get busy, I heard this alarm going off. And I'd been having such a good time. I didn't want to wake up. I wanted to stay in this kind of dream space. And finally, I noticed that there was an emergency services person in the back of the ambulance with me. I'm like, yeah, could you turn that alarm off? It's really annoying. And she's like, well, honey, I'm afraid that's you setting the alarm off. I was like, oh, oops, sorry. And that's when I really came out of the stroke. And by the time I got to the hospital, I had no symptoms. And they said, well, we can't treat what we don't see. And so when I got home to Sacramento, I got checked out by doctors here and doctors at Stanford, and they can't tell that anything happened. The only proof I have is the hospital bill and what I spent in New Zealand on that
Oh,
special
geez.
day. Thank
Yeah.
you. I appreciate that. Yeah. When God wants to have a conversation with you, they will find a way to have a conversation with you.
Do you believe you had a near-death experience, or you had a hallucinogenic experience, or they're one and the same? What do you think that was all about?
That was a near-death experience.
Okay.
In medical terms, it would be termed a TIA, transcendental ischemic something or other, because it didn't last and there were no permanent damage or any symptoms after the fact. All I can tell you is it was a miraculous experience, and it freaked me out so much that I didn't tell anybody about it for 3 years, including my husband. I didn't say a word about what I'd experienced for 3 years,
Wow, even that day?
even that day.
Goodness.
Yeah, I was like, "What just happened? Did I make that up? Was that all bogus? I can't say anything about this. People are gonna think I'm nuts."
Yeah,
And so
I've
I didn't
been
say anything, and yet the messages kept coming through. In fact, it was really
mhm.
funny. I woke up in the middle of the night with a finger pointing in the middle of my head, "Get out of bed and write it down. Get out of bed and write it down." And I knew that it was the divine telling me to get out of bed and write down all the questions I'd asked and the answers that I'd received. And I fought it. I was like, "No, no, 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 no. I'm not some religious guru. I don't know this stuff. Who am I to no, no." And finally, I had this realization, well, do you really need a brain aneurysm before you're willing to listen this time? And that got me out of bed.
Yikes. Well, that was my next question. Did you consider yourself a religious or a spiritual person before? Do you come from a religious family or a spiritual background?
I don't come from a strong religious background. My parents were both PhDs in math, and I grew up in the Quaker tradition.
Oh, wow.
And so I consider it kind of the utmost hippie version of religion because we spoke directly to God and we would get insights directly from God and then share them when moved to do so during silent meeting. And so I've always known that this connection existed and I would get messages periodically during my life. But like most of us, I had kind of compartmentalized it. It's like, I've got my business here, I've got my family here, I've got my fun here. Oh yeah, and there's that religion thing up there somewhere. I'll pay attention to it when it's the right time, right? It was not front and center of my life. And now I realize everything comes from this space of spirituality. Everything is born from this. That is the energy that flows through us and how we express who we are.
And how interesting that you were raised by a couple of math professors, because spirit communication, in my thought pattern, is all code. And it looks like computer code, like numbers, like, code. And then the code is translated by how you interpret the code, how I interpret the code, how somebody who speaks a different language interprets the code, which is why we can communicate with somebody, and I do it all the time with people who don't speak English, and I get information back for them in spirit, and they're able to understand it. Usually there's a translator. I worked with a family last week who there were several members and they all spoke Mandarin. Well, I don't speak Mandarin, but one of the nieces spoke Mandarin and English, and she translated for us, but all the information came in, and it came in a way that involved things from when they lived in China that I don't know, places and events and things like that that are not part of my life experience. And yet they understood exactly what we were talking about as it was being translated. So it's fascinating to me that you were raised by a couple of number people. And certainly in your industry, I mean, that's what you do. You're looking at all the numbers in the advertising industry. What kind of performance is it? What's it going to cost? What are the, all of those parameters that come in. So you were playing with numbers for your career as well.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely was, and it's really interesting, but if you look at nature, if you look at how things are put together, we know that nature and physics and math and all of that, symphonies are math. Music is math. We know that there are numbers embedded in everything we do and everything that we experience. So it just depends upon where your focus is. And your focus is on the message and the meaning. And yeah, makes a
Yeah.
difference.
I always talk about attention, intention, and you alluded to that earlier. It's
Yes.
where our attention is and what our intention is with that attention. And we think artificial intelligence, yeah, that's it. But a woo-woo, a woo-woo acronym for AI is, attention, intention.
Well, it's
There we
interesting.
go.
I did a TEDx talk called Abundance is a Choice. And that's where I talk about intention, what you want to create and how you want to feel about it, and attention, your focus. And those are two powers that you control that shape how you experience your life. Yeah, it's incredibly powerful.
Right. What are we supposed to do with our lives? Everybody comes in and when I talk to them, not everybody, but I would say a huge percentage of people, and they'll say, "What's my life's purpose? What what's somebody's life purpose?" And then I'll tell you what I answer.
Well, I know that your life purpose is to bring the love, find the love, share the love, right? That's fundamentally what we're here to do. And a lot of that finding the love is finding out how to love yourself, how to cherish yourself and appreciate who you are, and then do your best to be your best self when challenges show up. And they will. That's a guarantee. Nobody's life is going to be easy peasy all the time. It's not supposed to work that way. You're supposed to figure out, how can I love myself enough through this? How can I care through this? How can I make life easier for others through this? And it's amazing what opens up for you when you're willing to show up that way. So that applies to everything because it's all in how you look at what you're doing. If you're making beds in hotels for a living, are you embedding love in what you're doing? Are you really savoring the joy in what you're doing? Because people feel that. People feel the energy that you leave behind.
Well, and most of us are raised to think, well, what's my career supposed to be? Am I gonna start something? Am I supposed to work at an animal shelter? Am I supposed to paint paintings of daffodils in a spring meadow? What am I supposed to do? And I would say, go where you're led. Where's
Yeah.
the joy? Where is it fun? We're here. What my answer is, and I think it parallels what you just said as well, is we're here to love and we're here to create. And they say, well, create what? Create whatever you're led to create. And it doesn't have to be just on the same path your whole life. You may want to be a painter, and then you may want to be a musician, and then you may want to be a whatever. Doesn't matter. It's just as long as you're having the fun and you're enjoying it, and that's where we're led. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. We are continually challenged to learn and grow all the
Mhm.
time. And I liken it to a set of stairs. You're climbing the stairs and they are steep stairs, man, and you're huffing and puffing. And finally you see a landing. And whew, you get to the top of the landing and you're bent over, your hands are on your knees, and you're just deep breaths trying to regain your composure. And then finally you can stand up and walk around, and that landing is pretty familiar now and you're getting used to it. And then after a while, you're telling other people, "Oh yeah, you're almost here. Come on up. It's no problem." And then after a while, that landing gets really boring and you look for another set of stairs. So it's really about challenging yourself and going within to feel what feels exciting and uplifting and inspiring and energizing, and let that be your guiding light.
And lighten up, Francis, in the
Yeah.
meantime, right? Yeah. That's a big thing I hear a lot from spirit. It's not that complicated. It's not supposed to be a slog. It's supposed to be fun. Find the joy, find the love in whatever it is you're doing. There's always a silver lining in a black cloud, whatever that saying is. Yeah. What happens after this life?
It's a graduation, it's not an ending, and it was really funny because I read your book, I love your book, it's
Thank you.
fabulous, and I was describing your book to somebody else, and I said, "Well, she's talking about the entire wedding. She's talking about the decorations, and the setup, and the design, and the timing, and who shows up when, and then the music starts, and then they're reading this part, and then the speeches at the and da 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 da," and I just saw the party. I just went straight to the party. It's a graduation. So, yeah, there is so much that you learn and you get to do in this life, and then you transition, and the best analogy I've been able to come up with is kind of like the difference between kindergarten and 1st grade. Now, when I was in kindergarten, we had nap time. In 1st grade, no more nap time. Well, when you're physical, you have a body, and when you're not physical, you don't have a body. But there's a whole lot more going on, and it's all interesting, and it's all really fun and exciting, and you can still be in touch with those you've left behind. It's really interesting. I call him my father in love. My father in love passed first. And I had never noticed bluebirds in my area. I'm in a more rural area. And I'd go walking in the morning and there'd be a bluebird flying alongside until it got my attention, and then it would fly overhead. The bluebird of happiness saying, "Hey, I'm here. It's all good. Have a great day, honey. See you soon." And my own father always stressed about me merging onto the freeway, and I'm a really good driver, but it stressed him out. So to this day, he clears space for me to merge on the freeway. I always check, I always look both ways, and I always say, "Thanks, Dad. Love you, miss you." And it's a reminder to acknowledge all of my parents and ancestors and angels and all of the wonderful things that they do for me. I highly recommend that you hire angels. You know that little trick, right?
Tell us.
There's gazillions of angels, and they are bored to flippin' tears. They would love to help you out, but you have to ask for help. So I like to hire angels by saying something, and I always like to thank them in advance. "Thank you so much, angels. I love and appreciate you. Thank you for all the many blessings you give me. I really appreciate that this trip is going to be super easy and straightforward. The perfect gas stations at just the right place, wonderful meals, outstanding conversations. I'm going to meet wonderful people, be uplifted, inspired, and enriched. Thank you for all these many blessings, and please share this with everyone else." I love to hire attitude adjustment angels first. Attitude adjustment angels focus my attention on all the little blessings, all the little things that are going well. So I celebrate those. And the stuff that ticks me off, I don't even notice it. Or if I do, it's outrageously funny. So, so I hire the attitude adjustment angels for me first, and then for everybody else that I'm going to encounter or impact.
My favorite kind of angel that I heard from a client that she hires, she says, "I hire glam angels." I said, "What the heck is that?" She said, if I'm going to a big party or something and I need to look extra special, they help me with my hair, they help me with my outfit, they help me with my jewelry to help me look glam." And she said, "Those are my favorite angels, are the glam angels." And they come in and it's like you see in the movies, when one of the movie stars is getting ready to go to the Oscars, they got the hair people and the makeup people and the nail people and the massage people, and it's a whole group that comes in to make them look glamorous for the red carpet for the Oscars. I
Well,
love
cool.
I
I've
laughed
never
my
hired
whole
glam angels. I'm gonna take that on.
Glam Angels, is that hilarious?
That's
We had
great.
Jean Slater on the
Yes, I love
show.
her. Yeah.
Oh my god. Her book is just great, Hiring the Heavens,
Yes.
and she talks about the same thing, and she said, same thing, they're bored.
Yeah.
She says they're bored. You think, "How can angels be bored? Isn't that a human emotion? What's up with that?" Yeah. They just but then they're sparks of the divine like all of us, so they're all, you know, able to do multiple things at the same time. And furthermore, I always say that spirits with whom I converse, they all have ADD because they do.
Well, they do have a sense of humor. I'll
Well,
tell you that.
they do. They're
They
hilarious.
are hilarious, but they're also pranksters sometimes. I hired some angels. I have to get on the freeway when I go to the grocery store. I get on the freeway for one exit. And so I was in my car and I haven't started the car yet, but I hire angels for a nice, safe, easy trip home. Okay, no problem. I get on the freeway. Turns out there were 2 accidents on this 1-mile stretch of freeway. We went 5 miles an hour. It was safe. It was easy. It was not fast.
Be careful what you wish for and ask for,
Those
right?
little angels. Yep.
But these guys, they'll be talking about, their old truck, and then they're talking about the dog, and then and this is all like the truck, the dog, the birthday party when you were 4, the something else, and they don't seem to be related, and they're not in order from a chronological or timeline order as we would perceive in our human forms. So when we're conversing with a loved one in heaven, I would say, "Okay, be prepared. They all have ADD. They're gonna bebop all over, and they're just gonna give us information, as it comes to them. So just be open for that." You say resistance is a call for love. What do you mean by that?
Whenever you are feeling resistance about something, it's because you just have a certain perspective on whatever's happening where you believe it to be a limitation. What if you chose to adopt a different perspective and look for how this might be an opportunity for you? What kinds of possibilities could this open for you? You know, maybe you're not really thrilled with the idea of doing public speaking, but you have this opportunity to do it, and it's important for your work that you are willing to do public speaking. Well, instead of ranting and raving about it and freaking yourself out about it, instead, you could acknowledge that this is going to help you grow and learn new valuable skills. And when you realize that it's really about the audience, it's not about you, and you can get into the mindset of how much you love to serve these people and how grateful you are that you can lift them up and empower them in some way. It's not really about you, it's just through you. And then you realize what a blessing and an opportunity it is for you to get to share the wisdom that you have to impart and enrich them in some way. And you don't know exactly what that's going to look like. You just have that intention. You bring that intention and that focus of love to make a difference. And you do.
Mhm. I love that. Are all experiences a blessing?
They are. They don't always seem like a blessing at first.
Right.
My sister lives in Northern California in Santa Rosa. And a few years ago, there was a really bad fire that came through. They had 10 minutes to get out. They shoved a few things in the car and they were able to get out, and they both were okay, but the house was completely destroyed. They lost everything. Fortunately, the insurance was decent, and it did take about 3 years, but now they're in a much better house, in a much better location, and everything is far better than it was before, and they never would have made that transition if they hadn't had that incredible opportunity to start over. Starting over does not have to be a disaster. It is what you choose to believe it is for you, and that's why it's so important to pick your beliefs in a way that serves you. I believe this is enriching my life in some way, even though I don't see what that is yet.
Operative word yet. Yeah. Yeah. Women are good at nurturing others and not so good at nurturing themselves. How do we learn that skill for ourselves, we women?
You know, it's really interesting that you say that. I love Marissa Peer. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. She's out of the UK and she does rapid transformation therapy. She was originally a hypnosis expert. And she says there's one person that you just wish would believe in you. If this person would acknowledge you and appreciate you, it would just make your life magical. And that one person looks at you in the mirror every day. So, what are you saying to yourself? And often we don't hear what we're saying to ourselves. It's just kind of all of this mumbo jumbo going through the minds. And that's why I always encourage people take time to write down what's going through your mind. Write it down in a journal or type it on the computer. Just get your thoughts out of your head so you can see what you're saying to yourself. And if what you're saying to yourself is not something you would ever say to a friend, like it's really mean and it cuts them down, then that's not something you should be saying to you either.
Mhm.
And you have the opportunity to shift it into a more loving statement, one that's filled with possibility and potential. Often we don't acknowledge what we've already accomplished and the skills that we're bringing to the table. The biggest mistake we make is thinking we have to fix everybody out there. We have to make sure everybody else is happy first. Well, the fastest way to make them happy, make sure you are happy. The most incredible sound in the universe, the most important sound in the universe is the sound of your loved one laughing so hard, tears are streaming down their face. Belly laughs, they can barely breathe, they're laughing so hard. Capture that. Capture it on video. Make sure you've got an audio of it. So when you've got moments where you're not really feeling all that, listen to their belly laugh. And you can't help but laugh along with them. The reverse is true too. When you find something silly or funny or outrageous or ridiculous and you start to giggle and laugh, all of a sudden you pull people out of their malaise or wherever they are now, and they want, "Well, what is she laughing about? What's got your funny bone going?" And they wanna laugh with you. It's
Mhm.
very attractive.
Where do those negative thoughts come from? Why do we all have them?
Because we think that those negative thoughts will teach us how to be better, and I believe it's no fault of our parents, but they were trying to guide us. They were trying to put up guidelines and a safety zone for us to work within so that we could have a really wonderful life. But unfortunately, that meant it was a lot of, "Careful, that's too hot, you're gonna get burnt." "This is gonna hurt you, that's gonna hurt you, that's gonna hurt you." And so we're oriented for, "I've gotta pay attention to all the things that are gonna hurt me," instead of, how are all these things going to help me?
The
It's
one
old
that's coming
programming.
to my mind is in my generation, in my childhood, all of my friends and my siblings and I, we were all told children are to be seen and not heard, especially in a group. If there was a big bunch of adults around or whatever, you better behave and you better just be perfect little children and you're to be seen. You better look good, but nobody really cares what you have to say, is
Yeah, my
what the
mom used
message
to
was. Yeah.
yeah. No, my mom used to say a little rhyme, "The wise old owl sat on the oak. The more he saw, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Why can't you be like that wise old bird?"
Mm. Yeah, same thing. And that's what they were taught as well. I mean, certainly children throughout the ages whether they were poor or whether they were aristocrats, they were brought in for a short period of time to make their appearance, and then they were off in the nursery, or
Yeah,
they were off doing whatever it was, and the parents were doing adult things. So I can see how that's been passed down, and I think our generation has changed that with our children. I would never even think of saying that to
right.
my son or my grandchildren ever. Not even so we know better. When we know better, we can do better, but
Absolutely,
it's
but the
just
person
all
who needs
passed
to hear you
down.
the most is you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Because most of us have about a 12-year-old that's directing our lives. It's our 12-year-old self, right? It's true.
Yep.
It's true. It's called the middle child, and it's a whole psychology thing. You got the child, you got the middle child, you got the adult, but the middle child's the one that's really running the show for most of us until we're cognizant of that happening and what we can do about it. Couple more questions as we're winding down here. Can we use fear to manifest abundance?
Only in that it is the opposite of what you truly want. You can't punish yourself into success.
Say more.
It's more about instead of all the things that make you anxious and all the things that you worry about and all the things that stress you out, instead focus on what lights you up, what you enjoy the most, what you really savor, and put your focus there. Because when you come at whatever you're doing for a living from a space of love and you put love into it, you are amply rewarded in return. Fear dissipates that. Don't bother wasting your time with fear. Fear is just a reminder to go back to love.
Wonderful. It seems that your life's mission was born out of your ordeal. So, what do you consider your life's mission to be now?
My life's mission now is really, I call my business the abundance journey. And that is a journey of recognizing the divine within you and celebrating that divine within you, allowing yourself to be the divine that you are, and finding ways that you can express yourself where not only is your life enriched, but you're also enriching the lives of others. So that's really what it's all about. And I just feel very honored that I get to work with people who crave that level of spiritual expansion. That's really where my sweet spot is. You are a spiritual miracle. You just don't know it yet.
Well, I think you do a magnificent job of distilling the complex into easily understood principles and concepts. So I, for one, am very grateful you had that stroke. I'm even that sounds twisted, but I'm even more grateful that you came out of it after having experienced all this profound wisdom that was downloaded into your head. And I think it's remarkable that you're able to remember it and act on it. And furthermore, that you've come out and you're fine from a physical perspective and you can help enlighten all of us into the simplicity of the information we're receiving from the divine.
Yeah. And the cool thing was that just turned the tap on.
Yeah.
And now the tap has been running, and so now the stream gets broader and bigger, and so I get more and more understandings and more awareness. And so, yeah, living in that space of awareness is really incredible. It's just amazing. Yeah,
And my guess is that you're living a more joyful life than you could have ever imagined.
absolutely.
Yeah, I am
Absolutely.
as well. It's
Yeah.
really interesting. Yeah, and it keeps getting better. You say,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm getting old. I mean, la, la, la," and I go, it just keeps getting better."
It does. It
Yeah,
really does. And it's kind of like, what can we celebrate right now? What can you celebrate about your life right now? And anchor in that joy. Just really feel it in your body. Feel the amazing opportunity that we got to connect. You know, our energy is now permanently connected. And it's so uplifting and enriching and inspiring. And our energy is connected with everyone listening. They all get to be a part of this celebration of life. How beautiful is that?
I agree. Well said. Why do we incarnate? Last question.
We incarnate because we love to be physical. This is such a cool playground. It's amazing. All kinds of interesting things happen, and we get to relearn it every time. And sometimes we come back with a specific focus of what we want to practice, but often we come in with a clean slate and a new opportunity to create. And we are creators. That is why we're here. We're here to create the life we choose to experience. And we do have a lot of choice around that. We have choice in what we focus on, where we put our attention and our intention.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. How can people learn more about you and your work?
You can visit my website, theabundancejourney.com. And you can also check out my podcast and video show, also called The Abundance Journey.
And your TED Talk. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Abundance is a choice is my TED Talk. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You can find that all off of your website. I
Yes.
know those links are all there. So theabundancejourney.com. And we'll have that in the show notes. All righty, everybody. There's lots to absorb here. You're going to want to watch this over probably several times. In the meantime, sending you lots of love from Sweet Home Alabama, mwah, and from California too, where Elaine is. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. To enhance your spiritual journey, click on one of the videos below and remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share with your family and friends.